This is the Ink, Pray, Love podcast. We talk all things health, wealth, and community connection. Let's go. Welcome to this episode of the Ink, Pray, Love podcast. Today, we have a special guest for you today. It's going to be my buddy, Nick Onken, and he's an identity alchemist. And that we're going to explain exactly what that means. But I met this guy at the Gerard Adams Leaders Great Leaders Retreat, and him and I did a sweat lodge together. And I don't think that we'll get into that one. And I don't think we'll ever forget that memory. You get really close when you're so sweaty, you might die with someone. And that bond was there. And I really appreciate that forever and ever. And we're going to teach you guys how to craft your identity, how to craft your personal brand, and how to live a stylish, epic life like this guy does. Nick, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us what identity alchemy is.
So identity alchemy is it's a process that I've created over the last couple of years in reflection of my whole life of really just a process of personal development that spans into building a personal brand. So I would say it's a process of development that I've used my whole life without even knowing it. Just, developing myself and just in my own like personal mastery. But the process is basically deconstruct, curate, and become. And the process really is to, on the front side of things, is help you to build a more aligned, congruent personal brand, which makes you become more magnetic because people are attracted to people who are, for lack of a better word, authentic online. And, really creating a process around that. So deconstructing who you are, where you've been, your adopted identity, your natural identity, what gifts you have to offer the world, and then curating the new identity of like, who do you want to be? Who do you want to step into? Who do you, and it is kind of like this in a space of personal development, but like, who do you want to be in the world? Like, where do you want to step up? Where do you want to rise up into? Because we all know that as an entrepreneur, our business is directly related to our own personal growth. The more we grow and expand as a human, the bigger our business is, the more money we can make, the more tapped in and deep we'll be, the more impact we'll make. So curating is the next step in that, into like, who do you want to be? Like, who is that next version of you? And it's really just about the next version of you. And we're always stepping into a new identity, sometimes I've been through like probably 5 identities this year, just in the amount of growth that I've done with myself. And that's a whole nother story. And then the third piece is becoming and liberation. So, or becoming and expressing. So stepping into that identity, both on and off camera, right? Because being in the world is the way that you just like move through the world. It's embodying the identity that you've curated and that idea. And then how do you take that and tell that story to the world through the digital space and through a personal brand? So part of that is also like, how do you hire the right photographer? Part of the curation piece is also, how do you start to get inspired and visually translate your story and your identity that you've curated into the becoming piece. But the becoming piece is really kind of a two part of the embodiment of the brand and also the storytelling aspect of the brand. So that's what
all these things. I want you to do. I want the masterclass.
Yeah, that's it. That's it in a nutshell, for sure. Or, I mean, just in an overview.
Yeah,
but I just taught a whole identity alchemy course it's like a 5-week course basically on this whole process.
Oh, amazing. We'll drop that in the show notes. You got to give me the link later. When we did the session that you actually facilitated in Leaders Create Leaders, it was one of my favorite parts of the whole retreat. Just to see your story, how you built things, and then your idea of how to craft a personal brand, rooted in authenticity, and then the moods and the vibes. And it was really insightful. As someone who teaches personal branding for a long time, it was just cool to see somebody do it in your flavor, in your way. I learned a lot. I was like, this is great. So I valued it. And then just to see you live it out, like see you live your brand your that was what I loved about you as well. Your style and your vibe when you come out that way.
Thank
And
you.
it rings true even when we're thinking we're gonna die in a temescal ceremony, the sweat lodge. Like, I thought I could die in that one. It was so intense, and we come out of it and we're still
Totally.
true to brand. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get into it
Absolutely.
all?
Well, I originally was my original career was a graphic designer. That was
Mhm.
my first. That's what I went to college for. Did that for like 5 years, and then discovered photography and decided that I was going to be a commercial photographer. So I spent the next probably like 5 or 6 years developing my photography career, my photography work, getting into the space of being a commercial photographer, so shooting brands and global brands like Nike and Reebok and Coca-Cola, and that was kind of my first foyer. And then I started shooting celebrities like Justin Bieber and Usher and Jessica Alba, and then magazines like Cosmopolitan and Mary Claire and Conde Nast Traveler, and so this was like my first big career and my first big business that blew up and around like 2009 through 2010. And it was I was booming. I was traveling all over the world. I was like, getting paid to like shoot these huge campaigns with I was like, I would be in charge of like 20, 30 people on set, and then we'd shoot these images. They'd end up on billboards and magazines, and super dope. And then my as the digital, because this is I was kind of like inducted into the older, kind of the middle of the old school side of the business, when there was no there was no internet, or there was no social media essentially. So everything was print ads and billboards and things like that. So the money was big, a lot way bigger back then. And then as digital, like Instagram and social media, started to come on the rise, that just like completely like uprooted the industry, just like the music industry, just all these
Mhm.
different industries, right? And then like the access to digital technology, digital cameras, allowed all these young photographers to come into the game. And so it was this mix between saturation and like clients not knowing how to interact with the digital, like social media space, in terms of like hiring photographers. And so my business started to decline. um, it just started going downhill. Like there was just like there's way more competition, way less high paying jobs. Like it was, and like the industry was trying to figure itself out. It's just, like that's why I even left the industry. It was because it's just like I don't even do it anymore. It's not even,
Mhm.
there's not enough money in it. It's not like, it doesn't resonate with me anymore. But like I had to go through a whole process of letting go, and I went through a whole dark night of the soul, and to the point where I was just like completely didn't know what to do with myself, because like my self-worth was built into who I was shooting, the brands that I was shooting, traveling the world, all these different things. And when that kind of faded away, like I was like, I started crumbling and I didn't know what to do with myself. And
Whoa.
then, yeah, my friend Lewis Howes got me into this emotional intelligence and leadership training called MITT out in LA. And that's just where I kind of like shifted a whole different paradigm for me, a new way of thinking of possibility versus limitation, understanding where things were coming from, understanding that my self-worth was coming from my career and my job and my to completely external. And so learning how to let go of that, that was kind of like the first dark night of the soul. And through that, personal development became a thing for me. Like it started to become like a really important piece of my life when I started learning about it through this course, or through this training. And so that was, as I started to shift my own way of thinking, I started exploring different avenues. I started painting. I started my own podcast, and then just kind of exploring and playing with different mediums. And then down the road, started Lewis. It was, Lewis kind of was like, "Hey, I need to do a new website. Do you want to do it? Do you want to do a photo shoot for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Never really done anything in this side of like for the personal brand side. But that's where it started, was like with him.
Cool.
And
Yeah, I love
and
his
so
stuff. Lewis is the man, and I really appreciate that. It's wild how, yeah, the world crumbled because you were like traveling the world shooting like the shit, and then now who am I? And I went through that cycle many times in my life as well. And then it
Yeah.
turns out better, usually in a different way, and that's really cool to see how that you went through that growth process, and then always looking within and in the leadership skills and in our own development. That's the way out, instead of crumbling as a human. We got to crumble a little bit though, don't we? For a
Yeah,
little bit.
I mean, the universe is gonna throw you some cosmic bricks, and they're gonna get bigger and bigger and louder until you
Yeah.
listen.
I know. I got hit by a truck. I get
Yes,
it. I
yes,
understand.
exactly, exactly.
Oh man. And so
Um,
then where did it shift into after, okay, shooting Coca-Cola, Justin Bieber, Usher, and then the whole game changed, then what happened? Then how did you reinvent yourself?
yeah, I mean, I think the reinvention came through the start of working with Lewis, and
Mm,
it took a few years because I was still doing some commercial stuff and
yeah.
kind of figuring it out, like what is the next, and that was challenging. It's been challenging because it's like leaving something where I was making a lot of money, or yeah, and like having the downfall of that into something new, right? And
Yeah.
so as the personal development piece came into play, I started letting go of the attachment to the commercial photography piece. And
A
like,
question around that is live for me and a lot of people I know and my clients, just like there's so much self-worth tied into money, like so much
yeah,
identity tied into our ability to earn, especially as men, and it's like, well, who are we if we're not earning, if we're not making money? I'm curious what you have to say about that.
yeah, I mean, it's something I've battled with, because it's such a societal construct, in my opinion. Of course, I want to make money, of course, but at what expense, right?
Hmm.
And to what end are we doing it, right? It's like, how much do we have to work to like destroy, like be workaholics to not enjoy life just to make money? On the flip side, like, yeah, we need money as a vehicle to like do the things that we want to do in life. So I think for me, seeing it as a vehicle has shifted things a lot too, in terms of like having access to the things that I want, whatever it's travel or
Mm.
my own creative pursuits or, whatever that looks like. I
I
think,
like that it's a vehicle for the destinations. It's not the destination. Like that's an important aspect I think to integrate, because we can have lots of money, and I had this and I was super unhappy, but then when I was using that money to create these experiences, like these feelings and these things that structures I wanted in my life, it shifted it. So money comes and goes. That's how it flows. It's energy. And don't think of it as
yeah,
you amassing it and that's your worth. Think of it as the vehicle to taking you into the things that actually matter. If I got that right,
totally.
I think
Yeah.
so.
And I've definitely battled a lot of scarcity throughout my career and
I
life.
feel it's like an artist thing too, though, right? Like I feel like this is an artist thing, and you're truly an artist, and it's just like there's a self worth scarcity chord I see a lot in my artist friends, in my tattoo artists, the tattoo artists that I employ. Like it's a thing. Where do you think that creativity and creative artist thing and money, where that relationship? What's that like to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's the ongoing challenge, right? Because you're always balancing like making a
Mm,
living with art. And when you're, it's like when you're doing art for other people, it's really hard to really fully do the art that you want to do, to be the
mm,
full artist that you want to be. So to make money, there's compromise, and there's like, there's for me with like commercial photography, it was like the commercial stuff that I was shooting wasn't stuff that I was like super excited about creatively. It's not like oh, I got to put this in my portfolio and show it off to the world. It was like there's a lot of jobs that I didn't even like show. I wouldn't even touch, but they paid me a lot of money. So
yeah,
that money allowed me to be able to go and do the stuff that I want to do. But then on the flip side, I was like, I was starting to experience burnout of just like doing all these jobs, and like it's like energetically taxing,
yeah,
flying all over the world, setting up all these like shoots. And like there was a point in 2009, 2010 where I would like shoot in New York and then fly over to LA, do another shoot. So we'd have like, 2 days of prep, like a location scout, 2 or 3 shoot days. And then I'd take a red eye back to New York, have like 1 or 2 days of downtime, and then go right into another production. And just like or then I'd fly to Brazil, or I'd fly to China and do a shoot out there. And so you're just like, it's
Yeah, and
exhausting.
I feel like I remember you telling me like some of your shoot prep was crazy. Like, did you make a beach or something? Like, did you tell me there was some crazy
Oh
like?
my God. Yeah.
I got that right. I remember that story.
Yeah. I was doing a campaign for Aussie Hair Care. You know, that brand, it's got the purple shampoo bottle with like the little
Yeah,
kangaroo on the top.
yeah. I know the kangaroo. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And we were shooting in LA because it's always, the weather's consistent there. And was it 2 days before we got out there, or 2 days, or the day we got out there, the forecast was like monsoon rain for the day that supposed to shoot on the beach. And so we just were like, we had to make a call because they can't, like, the production's so big that it would cost the client so much, way more to remove the shoot date than to actually like shift up what we were doing. So we ended up like, it was monsoon rain out in LA. And so we ended up like getting a huge studio stage, and then we trucked like a whole dump truck full of sand into the studio. Poor prop stylist. He went to the Home Depot and hired some guys to come out and help him like dump and rake it all, because he had to clean it all back up too. Um,
Oh my
yeah.
god.
So yeah, then we set up all this like scaffolding and like set up the lights so it looked just like the sunlight,
Wow.
and we shot the whole thing in a studio. And that was another set where I had like 30 people working with me.
What was the budget on that shoot?
Oh, the budget for the full production for 2 days was probably 300,000 or 400,000.
Yeah, wow. That's a good
Yeah.
marketing budget. Damn. For like a 2 day for one get one shoot campaign. Dang. I think a
Yeah,
lot of people listening, they're like getting into the space of like, I'm doing Google ads or like Instagram boosting and shit. And it's like, yeah, 400 G's. You're like, ah,
yeah,
it's
for
cool to
just a
see the
shoot.
scale.
That's not even like media buy. That's just like to
Yeah.
shoot.
Yeah.
We shot the first day was print, so there was basically like 2 shots that we did the first day, so they could go and like go in all the big magazines like People Magazine and all that stuff.
Yeah. For like
um,
two photos. You did it for two photos.
um yeah, and then um the second day was social media, so we had to shoot like a lot more
Yeah.
photos. I don't remember how many we shot, but it's funny
Sure.
because like the industry was still trying to figure itself out
Yeah. And it's
at
changed
that point,
so
and
much
it's just gone
now.
downhill since then. But
Everybody's a photographer now. Everyone's a travel influencer, travel photographer. Everybody's like,
everyone's
now
a
it's
DJ.
yeah, yeah. Now it's micro influencers. Like now, like they shifted the game completely, and that's where I think what you're doing now. You pivoted well because now the masses have more ability to have their identity out there, and
Yeah,
then they're able to. So if they're authentically able to empower themselves, hey, I have an identity. This is what I stand for. This is my brand. So many more people are solo entrepreneurs now, and
totally.
or entrepreneurs. Like in some way or form, they have a brand out there. And I think you told me this. You know, in some way or another, we all have a personal brand. Whether you're a business person or you just have an Instagram page, I'd like you to expand on that because I think that's really valuable for everybody listening.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have a personal brand, whether you need it or not is the question, right? I think if you're like building a legacy, you want to create impact, you want to move around in the world, building a personal brand is key, because people buy people, and I think that's the biggest thing now. Everything has moved to the personal brand, and my friends did this study, brand builders group. It's something like 74% of people are more likely to buy from you if you have an established personal brand. And you look at all these, so it's generate people like, that's why I do like have translated all the stuff that I do, is like people buy from people. So if you can create a brand that's magnetic, and we resonate with people through imagery, through feeling the emotional resonance of a really an amazing image. Like we want to buy from that person. We want to follow that person. That's the whole space of like where we're in now, right? And so and you look at personal brands on a bigger scale, like a lot of times the founder's personal brand is even bigger than the brand. Like Elon Musk, look at Elon's personal brand, or Steve Jobs, or any of these guys where it's like they're bigger than they have multiple companies. So as a personal brand, you can have multiple projects underneath your name, and that allows you to do different projects and to do different things, but still, and then use your name to promote all of them. Right. So, even Victoria's Secret was going through that when they went through that whole shakeup, they started using, I don't think there's models, maybe some models, but like they were using people with their personal brand, like had big followings in their own personal
Hmm.
brands versus just models.
Yeah.
They started building it when they went through that whole shakedown, like the Me Too movement shakedown,
Yeah.
and they restructured. They started using women with personal brands in different categories and things like that.
This makes sense. I like that. People buy people, they don't buy the actual, like I'd rather follow, yeah, Elon Musk than Tesla, or Richard Branson than all the Virgin stuff, because I'm just interested in what that guy's doing. What are they up to? And then I like them, or I like what they do. Then I'll be interested in their stuff. So I think that's really important. And you broke down a little bit of what identity alchemy is in building your brand. Is there some points that you'd say for anybody starting out, or in the game, middle of the game, to be able to solidify having a strong brand that's tied into their identity? How does that just benefit them in other areas of their life?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, it's like, I think if you're, I mean, it costs a lot of money to build a personal brand. So I would think that you would be generating revenue out of your personal brand at a certain point. A personal brand helps you create more of a legacy and more impact. I think there's people that like are working and they're getting clients, and they're making a certain amount of money. But then clients are kind of just coming to them. But if you want to create a bigger audience, there's a point that hits, and I would probably say this is like when people are hit around 150K in revenue, or like you start thinking about your personal brand, you start thinking of like, okay, how can I attract more clients? How can I charge more? Right. Because if you create a higher level of perception of the way that people perceive you, which is done through high level imagery and graphic design and video content, things like that, um, it gives you the space to charge more. People, like, if you create more credibility, obviously you have to be your work and service has to be
You got to do the
equal
thing.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes people can have a really great service and do themselves a disservice by having a shitty personal brand.
Yeah.
They
I,
could
I
be losing
sorry, go ahead.
clients. No, they
Yeah.
lose clients because people, like, you look at their website and you're like, yo, is this guy legit? Like, or does he work out of a garage, or is he actually
Yeah. Yeah.
someone or
I
something?
love that. I'd like to challenge little bit of that, as saying that it costs a lot of money to build your personal brand, but because there's so many tools now to help people bootstrap it that are starting out under the 150K mark, like, and they could do it in a way, it's more accessible and easy now since things have changed for them to use Canva templates and
Oh, absolutely.
AI editing
Absolutely.
apps, so that you can get by to an extent where you have an okay, decent, actually even well brand if you got an eye for it. But then I totally agree with you. Like, to get to that next level, like now I'm investing in marketing teams for this podcast, and it's like, yeah, the more that I can get this
Yeah,
out there, and the better quality trailers that we're gonna have for you, like it'll look better. Of course, it's the
totally.
same content. You're amazing, but I need to be able to market people to be like, I gotta watch this podcast, and that's been what I've been going through now, is investing in all that. So if you're listening to this, please share this, because this shit's expensive, and I'm doing it for free for
Totally.
you. So hook it
Totally.
up, man. Share it, like, follow, all
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many great tools that you can use to
Yeah.
DIY and do this stuff, but at a certain point, right? Like, you hit a capacity at a one person,
Yeah.
a threshold, right? So
Yeah.
you have to start investing. You have to be able to invest into the team to be able to like execute all this stuff.
Totally.
Um, so yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, there's so many like you can start. I mean, we're doing this DJ duo. And I'm literally like, okay, great. We just did a little photo shoot last night or the other night. I'm working on a website that's like $15 a month, buying a domain, getting an Instagram, and I can like set up the whole thing myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Luckily you're a pro. And so, like, yeah, you're the right person to be doing this. But one of my coaching clients, I'm super proud of her. She created her whole website on an app called Durable. That's like an AI website builder. And there's a million of these out now. But she built her
whoa,
whole thing, and it was like $40 or something. And built her website looks sick. And I was like,
crazy.
AI, AI is changing the game, of course.
Yeah,
Um,
they are.
but and then we got to figure out how to actually use it. Like, okay, AI is huge, but how about IA, the identity alchemy? Like, make sure you're doing that. That's
Exactly,
actually catchy.
exactly.
Should use that for something.
I
But
know. IA dot AI.
there you
And
go. Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so what are a couple brands that you think, personal brands that you think are super strong, and why do you like them?
Yeah, I mean, I would go with like, say, like Lewis Howes or Jay Shetty,
Mhm.
and I use these guys as examples because like I see the space where they've pushed over the threshold of being like somebody on the internet to like a mainstream like personality um through branding, like through
Mhm.
photography and through just brand association, brand, like it's really interesting to observe because like I've worked with celebrities and brands, and there is this side that I see that I've worked with that I've helped create, and then I see this whole side like there's like this category of entrepreneurs and it's not a bad thing, like being big, you could have like hundreds of thousands of followers, but you're still kind of in this like digital landscape, this like digital cocoon, where it's like you see these people with like 2 million followers and you're like, I've never heard of this person.
So many, like
Yeah.
so many, especially in LA. There's so many people that are like popping, and I have no idea who you are. And it's like it's a thing now. The world is there's so many little sub niche markets out there, and I think that's one good thing. For people that are like, I want to get my brand out there. It's like there's lots of people out there for you. You just got to market yourself well. And then the other thing is like there's a big gap where people are like, fuck, I'll never get to 2 million followers. Like I think this sometimes. I'm like, how the hell am I gonna get up there? Uh,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Totally. And then that, like I see the world of celebrity as like you have a household name, right? Like you
Mhm.
have a name that is bigger than Instagram, you know. And so like there's the opportunity to build that and like utilize, press and high level photography. It's like all this the ways that actual celebrities out there do it, right? Like it's like editorial photography, it's press in the right
Mm.
outlets. It's, and Lewis and Jay have gotten it. Like Jay was just on this cover of like um it's like some LA Times or something, and like so he's getting this like mainstream
Oh
press,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is,
He's out there. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Jay's just like skyrocketed as a personal brand,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even farther than Lewis. Like I met him with Lewis like 5 years ago, and he wasn't as big, and then he just like he's just taken
Yeah.
off since then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Lewis has used a lot of that same tactics, right? Like we just shot him for the cover of Success magazine, so and it's a decent like press play, like
Mhm,
press
mhm.
space. I just shot Chance the Rapper for Success magazine too, which was really dope.
Cool.
So like even that association, right? Like Chance is a bigger celebrity, and the fact that he was just on the cover of Success magazine gives that magazine more credibility, which probably raises Lewis's like profile from being on the cover as well too, right? So there's like this, it's perception. Who's a great, do you ever read the Shep Gordon book,
What's it called again?
Supermensch?
Super Mensch.
Yeah, Supermensch. Great book. He reads it. His story is insane. And he's like, he
Okay.
was a music manager. I think he managed like, it was like Alice in Chains or some of those like hugest rock stars in the
Okay.
world. And he like utilized back like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, he utilized all these like publicity stunts of like,
Uh,
association, right? Like he was like, oh, I'm going to build this artist. So I'm going to get this artist in a photograph with this other huge artist so that it builds this, they were seen together, and then that gets published. And so
mm,
there's this whole game it's a clout game as
yeah.
well.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That you can play and like and as part of, but to build your personal brand, build equity, build clout equity, social capital, all of that.
That's a thing. Clout equity is a big deal. It's really crazy to see that, like it's a very interesting game to play, and it's like that's just the way the world works forever. Like it's not a new thing because of social media. It's just expanded because of social media, and it's important
Yeah.
to be around people that are doing shit. And you see it, people want to be around you if you're doing shit. It's just how the world works, and it can feel ugly and like sticky, like social climbing, ew. But then also, it's just how tribal society worked. You'd probably want to roll the chief. Like it's just a thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's like power dynamics, it's
Yeah.
association, it's brand association. And to a certain extent, yeah, you got to play the game. I think what's cool is you can play the game and also be honest with people and share the downsides. You know, you've done a lot of that too. It's like
Mhm.
sharing all the shit that you've gone through, and people resonate with that. So I think if you can find a balance between showing that stuff and playing the game, that raises your brand clout, your brand positioning
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
got to be around the balance, balance, balance. What do you think in terms of getting your brand out there? Uh, what is the balance like if you're starting out or you're newer in the game? Um, yeah, how do you want people to see you and perceive you?
Yeah, I think a big piece of it is really getting clear on who you are and what your message is.
Mm,
Um, Part of the identity alchemy process is like ideating that, right? Like, what do you want to be known for? You know, when you think of Lewis Howes, you think of greatness. When you think of Gary Vee, you think of hustle. When you think of Jim Quick, you think of learning and and reading. When you think of like, I mean, who else do you have like associations with out there? Like, what do you think of when you think of Aubrey?
I mean, yeah, I think of plant medicine, but I think of on it. I think of
Yeah, you
his
probably
work.
think of like wellness and spirituality, or like
Yeah,
no, actually, no, more like workout spirit and spirituality. Probably
yeah,
more the
yeah.
spirituality piece now because he's not really like doing much with on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's more around a lot of plant medicine and a lot of like spirituality journeying. I was just with him like a week and a half ago. I got to jam with him about all that stuff, and it's quite interesting. And then that cult by association thing. I posted a picture with him, and then people are like, "Wow!" A client was like, "I want to work with you because it seemed like Aubrey was cool with being around you." I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like,
Yeah,
cool.
man,
All right, I'll take it.
it's credibility. Like if
Yeah,
people that are known are working with you or you're seen with them, like it positions you in a different space.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, it's like you think of Gabby Bernstein, you think of spirituality or
yeah.
manifestation, probably more like spirituality, the universe has your back kind of thing,
Totally. Yeah, that's
right? So
exactly that. Yeah,
trying to think of
exactly.
more women here instead of just white dudes, you know.
So many, but yeah,
I have a whole like theory, or not theory, but just I wrote a whole blog post on like the racism of being Asian
what?
and overlooked.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was just the whole idea of kind of observing this whole rabbit hole because like I
Yeah.
was on the dating apps like 4 years ago or something
Oh
like that.
yeah, yeah,
And I never really thought, I grew up very white, right? Like I'm
yeah,
half white, half Chinese.
yeah,
So I never really thought anything of it. And then I was like on the dating apps, and like I would just it would hinge primarily. Like I would get like yeah, like one or two. I'd get probably like a few likes, and of those likes, I'd be like, no, maybe
yeah,
one,
yeah, yeah,
maybe one
yeah.
kind of like, and then like I'd probably have like two or three conversations going,
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, whatever. I'm kind of bored of this. And then a couple like white male friends of mine in their like upper 30s, 40s, like were trying to show me something, and they sent me a screenshot of their profile, and I was like, what the fuck? This is a whole different app. Like, I mean, homie had like probably 15 conversations going with attractive women, and then probably a list, like another queue of like 30 or 40 likes. And I was like, this is strange. And so I just started like observing it, and I started researching it. And it is, like there's articles that have been written, in fact, that like, Asian men and black women are the least swiped, right? In dating apps. And then
yeah,
I talked to another friend of mine who is like a tech consultant for some of these dating apps, and she was like, yeah, they're inherently racist by algorithm. She's like, everything's assigned a number, and like they skew the algorithms to the highest paying money demographic, which is like 25 to 35 males, and so white males.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so the algorithms are inherently skewed towards that as well. And I was like, this is so interesting. And then I went to this whole and then I went into this whole process of like Hollywood is so programmed, right? So when you think of anybody iconic, like Hollywood programs society based off of like the storylines, right? So historically, um, everything, if you think of like household names, you would go white men, white women, black men, black women, probably Hispanic women, Hispanic men, Asian men, or no, Asian women, and then Asian men. Actually, Asian women might even be up ahead of Hispanic men ish. When you just think of things on a like, you close your eyes and you're like, who can I think of right now? You probably mostly would think of like white male actors.
Huh.
So when you see like how the stories are told of how they're portrayed as sexy and iconic,
Yeah.
Asian men have always been portrayed as like either Chi Chong funny guy or like kung fu like master. No, not sexy iconic, right?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah. Yeah.
black men are portrayed as sexy and iconic.
Yeah.
Um, White women, even black women are portrayed as sexy and iconic. And then you get into Asian women. Asian women are kind of they're sexy and iconic and a little bit more, but more like exotic and
Yeah. They're
fetish.
like fetishized. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get all the way down the bottom to like the um Asian men. Now, I will say the other piece is that Crazy Rich Asians has like definitely dramatically shifted Asian, especially Asian males in today's society because of
Yeah.
what they did. And I'm friends with the director and the writer, and like I know that they turned down a multi-million-dollar Netflix deal just to get Crazy Rich Asians onto the big screen, because they knew by getting it onto the big screen that it would shift the
Yeah.
perception of Asian males in society.
I love that you brought that up because I watched it with one of my close buddies, Dave, Meditation Dave in Bali, and we were on a plane and we are flying to go to a Vipassana together, and we're like, oh, let's watch a movie at the same time. You know, when you're on the plane, you time it right. And he's like, let's watch Crazy Rich Asians. I already seen it, but you got to see it. I'm like, why the fuck? Like, I was like, really, like, bro, really? I thought we were gonna watch something like not this, you know? And he's like, no. Trust me, you got to watch it, right? And I'm just like, motherfuck. And he's usually right about stuff. This guy's an actual genius, right? So
Yeah.
um, we watch at the same time and we're getting into it. And it's just like this fucking cheesy rom com, like, you know, kind of like Asian, like Entourage, you know, nice car clip, nice fancy shit happening. And I was just like looking over, I'm like, why the fuck? You know, consistently. And then he stopped me. He's like, look what it's doing for the Asian culture. Like, look what it's doing to showcase actually what the power demographics are in the real world, and that like how affluent Asians actually are, and
Yeah.
intelligent and family oriented. Like they're powerful people. This movie is actually showcasing that instead of like the racism in society, you know. And I was like, yeah, okay, fuck, okay, I can get with it. And then it like, yeah, but it's like still a rom
Totally.
com. I'm like,
Yeah, it's still a rom-com, but it's a mainstream show
yeah,
that or movie that everyone has, basically not everyone, but
it blew up.
yeah, and they intentionally had the Asian dudes like leads like take off their shirts in the movie for
Okay,
also that same reason, right? Is to portray them as sexy and iconic. And that's definitely shifted today's culture. And now you look at like all the new Asian films that are out, like coming
yeah,
out, like Asian roles that are coming out. You watch Crazy Rich Asians and you realize that there's only like one or two white characters in that movie,
yeah,
but you don't think about it. You just see it, and that's like the beauty of it, is that if you see it as normalized.
totally, totally.
Um, and I don't know if you saw Beef.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. I literally was gonna be like, "Yo, did you see Beef?" Because I loved Beef. It was so interesting and like ridiculous. But the fact that it's like this is LA now, there is subsections, and this is Vancouver where I'm at. Like this is a thing. There is, you know, there's whole Asian communities that are doing this. This is just a thing, but it's not portrayed in Hollywood. But now that they're actually showcasing it, like Beef was crazy, man.
Yeah, it was great. So weird
Yeah,
at the end, especially towards the
super weird at
end.
the end. I loved it though.
But it's, again, like you watch the whole show, not even thinking that the whole cast is Asian minus the one white lady.
Yeah,
So I think that perception shift in Hollywood is huge, and
yeah.
huge for Asians, and especially Asian males,
I love it.
which has been really dope. And you take that concept to the entrepreneur world, and like how all these white men entrepreneurs are the most listened to, like they're the biggest names. Minus like how many like Asian entrepreneurs can you think of besides like Jim Quick,
Jack
John
Ma.
John John Lee, Jack
Yeah,
Ma?
yeah. A
Like a
couple of
couple,
those like
right?
yeah, a couple of those top Indian like Google execs or like those dudes. Like there's a couple powerhouse Indian guys getting coming out there now, and I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see things getting more mainstream where they're like, okay, like there's a few and they're getting cooler and it's becoming a
Totally.
thing. Like that's nice seeing it being progressive in these ways because living in Asia for 7 years and you just see like the scale of money and power, like just it's a thing, but we can think in if it's not in the Hollywood mainstream society, that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think this is really liberating for a lot of people that there's a big world out there. Like when you get out of like your little hometown, there's a lot more than you actually think. And that can be
Totally.
intensely liberating if you're feeling oppressed in like,
Yeah.
I'm stuck this way, society sucks. There's more out there. And I think if you're like, striking out on dating apps too, because I think also maybe we're just looking in the wrong places because I've never had like a really deep quality relationship from dating apps. I've had a lot of hookups, in my earlier years, and it was just like
Totally.
junk food. No offense, like the girls are great. I just mean like it wasn't the rich and
Yeah.
fulfilling thing you meet when you're going to. If you go and you're leading, one of your talks that you did, or you're out there, it's impressive. People are going to see that in a different way. So you being fully in your identity and doing your genius is so much sexier than like how it is on like a dating app and you're like, I'm Nick, I have cool glasses. He usually has cool
Totally.
glasses. He usually has cool glasses. Sorry, everybody watching. I don't
Yeah,
know
but
where
I
you
got
are.
I got LASIK this year.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Congrats.
Yeah.
This is the
I
best money
did,
I
but
ever spent.
here I still
Nick's going to
have
go get his
the
glasses for everybody that's listening.
I still have the dope ass glasses though.
These glasses are sick.
Yeah, these are my Coco and Breezies. So
Hell
I
yeah.
just had them. They're still they're sunglasses. They like transition. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
we'll
met
just
you
do the
like
rest
this
of
and
it.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah, we'll
I
just
was,
do the
I
rest of
was
the interview like this.
Thank you. I was low key disappointed that I did. I was like, "Where the fuck's your cool glasses?" I was upset.
Yeah, but dude, LASIK
LASIK,
is a game changer, man. Oh my,
best money I ever spent. It was when I was like early, young, first being like minorly young kid, selling dope at that time, and I was like, I first had like my first money that I could actually like spend a thing on me. Actually like had a surplus, a little bit of cash, right? Hood rich, and I was like, do something that like that's worth it. And I was like LASIK because I had glasses always, and I was like, now if ninjas break into my house in the middle of the night, I don't got to fiddle for my glasses. I'm just ready. I could see. That was my like reasoning
yeah,
behind it. And actually, I
totally.
did get into a robbers breaking into my house in Bali, and I kicked the shit out of them because I didn't have to fiddle for my
Damn.
glasses.
Oh, amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
That turned out
I would
worked
that's
out.
exactly what I would would not exactly, but I mean like yeah, like think about like the apocalypse zombie apocalypse or some
Yeah,
shit like that. Like if
yeah,
I if like things shit broke down and there was nothing and my glasses broke, what the
yeah.
fuck?
What would you
What would I
do?
do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's so
Yeah.
worth it. It's crazy. I highly recommend that. It's so funny. We veered off into this.
I
Um,
know.
to,
I mean, just let's go back just a little bit, but like the
yeah,
identity alchemy piece, I think is
yeah.
huge, especially in the dating and attraction space too, because
Mhm.
like who you're being in the world is how you're going to attract who you want, like, right? And like identity alchemy is like, how do you create like an identity that you want to step into that's going to attract not only the clientele that you want, but maybe the love of your life, like I'm with my partner from this year and like I attracted her this year because of where I like the development work that I've done. And
Mm.
she's into self mastery as well. She's amazing. Like she's like quantum in quantum neuroscience, quantum manifestation and healing and all that stuff. And yeah,
Cool.
she's a wizard and she's like super creative artist and um yeah, she helps a lot of women and get into their own embodiment and like become liberated themselves as well. So it's so funny how that we both have this like we're helping people really liberate themselves and become the fullest expression of who they are.
I love this.
Because that's going to attract a bigger life. It's going to attract more things into your life, your love life, your money life, everything.
I love this. I love this. Yeah, it's beautiful. So getting clear, identity alchemy is getting clear on what you really want and the way that you want to be walking in this earth, and then crafting your image that aligns authentically to what you want in life. And did I got that right? Walk me through this one.
Yeah, I mean, twofold, right? Like
Mm,
there's the personal brand aspect of it, but then also there's just the personal development process of it. Like you can constantly deconstruct thought processes and constructs that you're living in and programs that you're living in curate new ones and step into that, right? Like that's kind of like where this originated from, was just like my own process of development over the last like 15 years. And then the personal brand piece is really just like, how do you take the identity that you want to step into and embody, how do you translate that to a visual storytelling piece? Communicate who you are to the world, and boost your, and like share your message with the world and help people and create impact and legacy.
I love that. Yeah, that's so beautiful, man. Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to jam with Nick and his services, which I highly, highly recommend, follow him on Instagram. We'll put the show notes, we'll put the links in there, and all of the stuff, the juicy stuff that he can offer. I highly recommend you check Nick out, and his DJing. I want to hear this music. What did you call it?
Yeah.
What was the genre again?
It's disco soul funk house.
Yeah, all right.
We're still like formulating it, but it's dope. I mean, the stuff that I play on my own is probably a lot more like organic, deep organic Afro house, Latin house. But the two of us together are kind of putting together this sound, because she's definitely like she's got a lot more funk, and I don't know, it's like not electro pop. I'm trying to figure out what that, like, you remember like Block Party, and
Yeah.
so like remixes of like Block Party and Daft Punk, and
Cool.
a little bit more technologic.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
You remember Jamiroquai?
Oh yeah.
I don't know why that just came up. You had that vibe for a minute. I'm gonna go listen to that on the way out of here. Thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate your time. Really, I had a great time talking to you. I always do, and I just appreciate you as my friend. Thank you.
Appreciate that, brother. Yeah, thanks for having me. Absolutely. Love jamming.
And everybody listening, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please share, subscribe, do all the things, and tune in for the next one. Big love, everybody. Peace out.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ink Pray Love podcast. I hope you found it inspiring, entertaining, funny, and also feeling a little bit more present and connected to yourself. Please leave a review and like and subscribe and do all those things. I'd really appreciate that. As well as, if you're feeling in a giving mood, this podcast is there for the charities that I love to support. Go to www.aaronbaya.com/charity and get some of those good karma points. This podcast is brought to you by Lighthouse Studios in Bali, as well as Full Reset Coaching. That is my coaching practice. And if you're looking for help in business, inner game impact, and building your legacy to be something you're proud of, your brand, your business, and how you walk the earth and who you impact, and also having the mindset and the heart set to be able to be happy handling it all, I'm here for you. Just DM me. Let's go. Peace out, homies. I'll see you on the next episode.